Written and directed by Robert Higgins and Patrick Givney. In their first feature, new Irish release Lakelands gained huge acclaim in the Glasgow Film Festival as it tackles the timely subject of concussions in GAA. Aina Hardwick plays central character Keane, who's struggling to relive the heights of his career where he played at county level, but his downfall is partly self-inflicted by still trying to juggle a party lifestyle. That sees him end up in a Cavan nightclub one night after training where a petty fight has devastating consequences for his personal and sporting life. Throughout the struggle, he reunites with his old Debsday, Grace, played by Danielle Galligan, who has returned home temporarily from London to care for her ailing father. And the two support each other as the only two people who can understand what the other is going through. Lakelands is an ambitious debut for Higgins and McGivney, made on a shoestring in Paddy's hometown of Grenard. Keane's farm and home is Paddy's family home and farm, while the central GAA scenes are also shot in a local club. So there's a lot to like, especially if you're into supporting local. It's also really interesting seeing GAA take a central role in the plot. We've seen it depicted in movies and TV before, but it's almost always an auxiliary element. Like think of Connell in Normal People. It's just something he does in the background, whereas this has it very much front and center. Unfortunately, there are some rookie tells here in the script and direction that held me back from really being able to enjoy Lakelands as much as I wanted to. From very early on in the movie, they're kind of beating us over the head with recognizable references, like they have 1 million aftershave, they have Pat the Baker sponsoring the GAA team. I'm always really cynical of these ploys because it comes across as the movie actively trying to ingratiate itself to the viewer by using remember when references rather than just telling a story well. To me, this is a film that knew the subjects they wanted to hit, but I think when they actually got to it, they didn't have that much to say. A lot of the dialogue is very surface level and lacks any depth. It feels at times like an extended road safety ad where they just say the most obvious statements because it's more important they get the point across instead of telling a refined, nuanced story. And again, that works fine in an ad where we all get that it's just 30 seconds of getting a point across. But this is a movie and we're here to kind of watch it to be told artistically and with a bit of nuance and to kind of have ourselves be seen as real people. Some of the lines just feel a bit first draft instead of real or lived in, like the only thing you're milking is that headache, or the GAA coach trying to give an impassioned speech and the killer line he ends with is this bullshit stops now. I mean, I'm sure people may talk that way instead of the real world, but I also don't pay to see people do so. Characters regularly just start shouting at each other and escalating the conversation without much prompting. Even a doctor, when breaking bad news to Keane, just starts raising her voice and scolding him when he's a bit taken aback and in shock at the news that she's saying. She's just like, will you just accept it? It's like, that's not how doctors talk. Even the worst bedside manner, that's not the way doctors would talk in that scenario. There are plenty of potential jumping off points for Lakelands to really get stuck into, but it feels like they don't fully know how to. I didn't love God's Creatures, but they took a good stab at deconstructing the idea of the small village good lad, and I'd have liked Lakelands to take Keane in similar directions, but I never really got a feel for who he is or if I should root for him or not, and if I should root for him, why am I rooting for him? Rather than tackling any of that, it seems like they're more concerned trying to make it seem like they get it by giving me the surface level references that I talked about earlier, or showing things like a bunch of lads sharing a bottle bond just to seem credible. It's like, that happens in real life. What? Isn't this so true to life? And it's like, yeah, well, you can just like show true to life by writing characters who actually talk effectively like real people do. It's way more credible to give me a three-dimensional character with positives, flaws, motivations, and challenges. There's some good acting here by Hardwick and Galligan. They hold their own and each have moments where they elevate the source material. But to be honest, it all seems a bit wasted without that depth to vibe off, and it comes across as somewhat melodramatic at times, which isn't their fault. They've done their jobs well. All in all, Lakelands reminds me a bit of when we got a video game for GAA. Was it good? Not really, but was it progress just to get to play a GAA video game? Sure. And similarly here, there's not much to offer, but we're getting a movie about concussions in GAA that might get a bit of conversation started. It's progress, but unless you know the people who made or started this, it's progress you can be happy with from afar, and you can just save yourself the time and money.